Hi, I'm Russ Camarda, an independent filmmaker and actor in New York, and in between the chances I get to do my creative projects, I love to sit down and talk with other artists to see how it is they do what they do, how they take art and use their craft to reveal truth to an audience. So in this series of conversations, you'll meet some people you may recognize, some people you won't recognize, but they're all independent artists, and we'll get in depth in a long-form conversation to see how it is they do what they do. Welcome to Art, Craft, Truth. This time on the Art, Craft, Truth podcast, actor Isiah Whitlock Jr. With an over 30-year career in film, television, and theater, Isiah is a face you'll definitely recognize. Several projects with Spike Lee, including The Five Bloods, 25th Hour, plus his iconic role on HBO's television series The Wire. Isiah is an amazingly talented performer, and I hope you enjoy our conversation. Isiah Whitlock Jr. Hey there.
How you doing?
Good. Can you see and hear me clearly?
I can see and hear you clearly.
All right. Beautiful. That's awesome. Thanks so much for doing this. And you come to me through Roz, right? Which is awesome.
Right.
Yeah, awesome. So
she's been a long time.
Yeah.
Great friend and confidant, and I've worked with her many times. She's helped me out a lot. So
yeah, she's awesome. She's done a couple of little voiceover things for me, and just awesome person. Really, really cool. All right, so I'm just gonna roll. We'll get started wherever the conversation goes. It goes, and let's just have fun with it. You know.
Okay.
All right. So, like I said, so you came to me through Roz. Where did you meet her? Where did you guys hook up? You and Rosalind Coleman.
First time I met Roz was in San Francisco. I was doing a production of the Piano Lesson, the national tour, and she had been with the Piano Lesson, I think from the beginning, when they were at Yale and then Broadway, and then the road tour. That's where I connected with them. But we worked on that tour and been friends ever since. And that's been about maybe 20 years ago or so.
Yeah.
No, it was 19. It was around like 1992 or something like that. So that's what, 20 years?
Yeah, easily.
Years.
Easily. So we're going to get to San Francisco, which is really interesting for me, and the formative part of how you trained and how you learned the craft of what you do. But you're in New York now, right? I see you got the right colors on. You got the right hat.
Yes. I'm just trying to turn my phone off here.
That's okay.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No problem.
Say that again.
I said, I see you're in New York now, and you've been here for a long time because you got the right hat on. Because I got my guy right here behind me.
Oh yeah. I'm a New York fan.
Yes.
You know, I mean, I like the Yankees. I like the Mets. As long as New York is involved and they're in it, I'm okay.
Right.
You know.
And you've been here for a long time, right? How long you been in New York?
I got to New York in 1983.
Yeah. All right. So, but originally from the Midwest, am I correct?
Yeah, I was born and raised in South Bend, Indiana, and I went to school in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Small school out on the plains called Southwest State University.
Right.
And I had originally gone there to play football, but I got banged up and hurt quite a bit. And realized it was too much of a price to pay for if you're not going to go on and play like pro ball or anything, which I wasn't.
Right.
I couldn't quite understand what the point was.
So, what were you, defenseman?
Yes.
Yeah, of course you were. Of course.
They used to call me 10 miles of bad road.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you know. So I wasn't very big, but I was very fast.
Right.
And so I was always causing like a commotion in the backfield, cutting through the lanes and things like that. So, but if you caught me, I was sort of a bit of a dead duck. You know?
Right. So,
and then I went from there to San Francisco.
So that's the transition I want to see us make here, which is you're an athlete. Did you have any inclination, even from a kid, that the arts or any kind of, was that even a road you thought about?
You know, I would think about it off and on. I never ever really saw myself as, you know, becoming an actor anything like that. I just kind of fell into it.
Right.
I heard they were auditioning for a play. It happened to be Arthur Miller's The Crucible.
Okay.
And I was with a friend and went over. I really went to watch her audition. And they asked me if I wanted to read and, that kind of a thing. So I did. And from then on, I've been running.
All right. So, this is the Colonel, Ren. What was it? What was the hook of that first moment when you were like, oh, I like this? What was it that did it for you?
Once I got into the play, then you get into the play, then you got to start going to audition. I mean, not audition, but rehearsals, and you're working and everything. And I said to myself, I remember saying to myself, this feels pretty good. I think I'm gonna be okay. Doing this.
Right.
Of course, in the beginning, I was like really terrible. I mean, I think I only had like one line in The Crucible,
right.
And I think I practiced like 3 hours on different ways to say it. One line. Yeah, I would be working in the mirror and things like that. And it's right when they go to pick up John Proctor at his house, and I was the jailer, a big ring of keys.
Come with me, or whatever.
Yeah, I wasn't even that good. I was like, I'll tell you the line. It was like, it was, oh, come on, John. That was it. and I did it just as, I was like, oh, come on, John. Oh, come on, John. Come on, John. Come on, John. That kind of thing.
3 hours.
And I was terrible. I mean, I was just really, really bad. But, the thing is that, you got to start somewhere.
Absolutely.
And I started there, and
was it the experience of, was it the attention? Was it the sort of ensemble vibe that we all get when we get into the theater? What was it that was like the juice for you that said, I can see myself trying to excel at this? What hooked you into it?
I remember thinking I could get the same satisfaction in the theater that I got as a football player.
Right.
It was that same kind of immediate gratification.
Right.
I can't tell you what that is,
right.
But it was the same type of feeling with a lot less pain.
Yeah, sure. Well,
physical.
Physical. Right. What it probably is the risk. There's a risk that you're putting out there, and then there's an immediate feedback from other human beings. So it's this element of risk and the reward of the acknowledgement of this other thing, of other people. So nothing else really does that, like, acting or even athletics. It's so immediate, especially in the theater. So when you went to school, you went out of school. Is that when you go to San Francisco to ACT? Is that when that happens?
No, I went during my right after my junior year.
Okay.
They had like a summer training program, and I went to San Francisco and that summer, and that really kind of, as far as I'm concerned, changed my life.
Right.
Where I really acting took on a whole different meaning. It took on a whole different thing. I saw, a variation of styles and teachers. And,
well, let's talk about that. This is the American Conservatory Theater. In San Francisco, and we're talking like the mid 70s, 75. So this is where. Yeah, exactly, baby. That's it.
I got it. It was eye opening.
Yeah.
It was culture shock. By the time I got to New York, nothing could faze me after the summer of '75 in San Francisco.
Yeah, that's a time to be in San Francisco.
It was.
So let's dive into this. So you talked about the different styles and stuff. So this is an ensemble, crew. This is like 30 or 40 actors or whatever, right? Isn't that how that whole system worked? It's a sort of an ensemble team. And
well, the summer training congress.
Okay.
A bunch of teachers who were from the company, from the American American Conservatory Theater Company, and they taught in the summer.
Okay.
And I was fortunate to have a very, very good teacher by a gentleman by a late name, Sidney Walker, who really kind of took me under his wing and really kind of gave me a hint of the professionalism as an actor. And that summer they wanted me to stay and join the regular program,
right.
acting program. But I had promised my dad that I would go to college, I would graduate. Couldn't, not do that.
Right.
I mean, he would have understood, but it was still like a personal thing for me, just how proud he was and everything. So I went back, I finished college, and then that next summer I went to San Francisco.
What did Dad think about that when you finished college and then you were going to go become an actor? What was the thought process? How did he feel about that?
He was fine, I mean, to make a long story short, the fact that I had just gone to college was huge.
Right.
And, it was sort of growing up. It was like, as long as you stayed out of jail and got a job, your life was fine. That's just the way it was. Right. So when I was going to college, that was a beautiful thing,
Yeah.
I worked in my dad's iron mill one summer where he worked, and he had been working there for like 25 years. I lasted 2 days, so
Right. Yeah.
He told me, he said, I never knew why you wanted to work here. I mean, it was like hell on earth.
Yeah.
And he said, go back to school, get an education, and then just do whatever you wanted to do.
Well, that's
so
that's everything, man. The support that you get is everything. I had my dad died when I was young, so it was just me and my mom. So for me, I had two older brothers who didn't finish high school. They went on to do really great things anyway. But for me, it was like, just do that. Just finish high school. Just do that, and then whatever you want is fine. So I totally get that. It's like I made a promise. I'm going to keep it.
The biggest thing was my dad took a bus
from
South Bend, Indiana to San Francisco, because by that time I had gotten into the company at ACT.
Right.
He went to see, he took a bus to see me in a play, The Little Foxes. And he came with my brother.
Wow.
And he said, wake me up when Isiah comes on.
That's great.
And he went to sleep. But I would go on stage, my brother would nudge him, and my dad would wake up and act like he had been there the whole time.
That's awesome.
And that was all he wanted to do.
Right.
He just wanted to see me on stage, doing what I do. He was so impressed.
That's great.
But as far as the play,
whatever. As long as he's doing his thing. So, all right. So let's get into some of the early craft. I mean, you said this one teacher took you under his wing. What are some of those early lessons? Were they approaching you with particular sort of schools of thought on acting? Was it, sort of classical training or method training? Like, did they approach with a certain head, or did you just kind of get basic, objective scene study type things? Like, what were you learning early?
That summer, it was just basic stuff. They didn't really hit you with any styles or anything. They sort of wanted to see what you were all about. Right. They were looking for the people who could just come in and just kind of express themselves in a very, very honest way. Once I went to school there, that's when it got a little more serious and honed down, and then you started talking about objectives and actions and things of that nature. And that was more of a universal approach.
Okay. So it wasn't, they weren't kind of steering you some Meisner direction, or it was just sort of, okay.
No. I mean, and nothing against those, different styles and programs, but from what I recall, it was, playing objectives, given circumstances, things of that nature, that if you could do those things, no matter what else somebody was trying to hit you with, you were going to be okay, you know.
Right. Listening, all the
Yeah.
basic stuff.
Yeah.
So what were some of the things you got to do early on? I mean, I'm sure in a situation like that, you're doing everything. You're basically doing whatever parts are kind of assigned to you at that point in an ensemble. But what kind of stuff did you get to do? At
Where?
ACT, in the early, when you were first working there?
In the training program?
Yeah.
Or in the company?
Once you get into the company, once you're out there and you're working as an actor in the company.
Once I got into the company, I was doing a little bit of everything. You know, you were doing Shakespeare, Chekhov, because at the time, the American Conservatory Theater was run by William Ball, Bill Ball. And so he was very big on doing a lot of the classics, a lot of the early modern plays.
Sure.
I mean, he would sort of mix it up. I mean, there would be new plays and things like that. So you got a little bit of a taste of everything.
Right.
But as far as what I was doing was limited.
Sure.
Because, you know, at that time, there was not very much out there for an African American actor.
Right, and they weren't doing sort of non-traditional casting kind of stuff. Okay.
Not really, not really. I mean, every now and then something would maybe creep up, but when I got the shot, you know, I mean, like in the Little Foxes, I think I played Cal in the Little Foxes, black, and there was me and another woman. We were the only African Americans in the company at the time.
Okay.
So we pretty much had that covered.
Right.
If anything came up. I mean, you know, they did like a production of Christmas Carol. They would, you know, loosen things up a little bit. But who's going to complain? You know, it's Christmas. But there was just not that much out there.
Right.
But that being said, I was just very happy and very fortunate to be working.
How many things a year would you do? How many plays or productions would you end up? Were you working a lot? Was it a lot of work?
Yeah, I was doing about maybe 7 or 8 shows a year.
That's awesome.
I mean, you know, and then you also had the advantage of doing stuff where it didn't really matter, you know, as to you were, you know. So, and that was a lot of fun because sometimes those characters would be so well written and you could, you know, do some creepy stuff, you know. But was there particular stuff that were there particular characters you liked or, you know, wanted to dig into? Like, did you find yourself, you know, really leaning into dramatic characters or comedic characters? Like, what was turning you on as an actor? Like, what did you want to do, and what did you get to do that you really enjoyed doing as an actor? It didn't really, to me, it really didn't matter.
Okay.
You know, as long as I was doing something, and I only say that because I think it speaks volumes for what I do today when I'm playing different characters and stuff. That was kind of like my thing, you know, like, you know, you want to be able to make these types of transitions. And that I learned early on. That's what I did. But I seemed to, every time they would do something where the character was, you know, modern, like in the last, you know, like a modern play or something, or just written or something like that, that's when it seemed like I had a chance to shine the most.
Okay.
And that was just my nature.
Right. And you were there for how many years at ACT?
I was at ACT for about maybe 4 or 5 years, somewhere around there.
All right. So if you look back at that particular section of time in your life, which was a real formative time as an artist, what's the triumph moment for you? What's the highlight where you're like, I remember that moment on that stage in that role when this happened? You know, was there a moment you look back on, or is it just sort of a general great time?
Yeah, it was sort of a general great time. You know, I didn't have that it wasn't like I did the Great Hamlet or anything like that. I would have liked to have tried, but I didn't. But there were moments, when you would, even in the Little Foxes, you come out and I had this long monologue and bring the house down every night.
That's awesome.
Doing the monologue. And, it was a great feeling. I was in Lanford Wilson's 5th of July. And this was he had written it. We did it at the American Conservatory Theater before they did it on Broadway in New York. And I played a character in there called, I think it was called Weston Hurley. And that was another, great opportunity. Modern play, hippie-ish kind of guy, weird a little bit. So it was, I had little small moments, but, did I, do the great Scottish play?
Yeah,
or,
right.
I didn't do Othello or anything of that nature. Would have been nice, but at that time, again, as an African American, you took what you could get because you wanted to keep going.
Sure.
You didn't want to let yourself get so frustrated that you would just say to hell with it and give up, which there were a lot of opportunities available to do that.
And so for you, it's always just been sort of that next thing, just keep working, keep going forward, find what's interesting in the next thing that I'm doing and move on. Did you think at that time that you were going to be a theater actor? Did you think about television and film, or did you think, eventually I'll end up in New York and I'll do Broadway, or did it matter?
I really at that time thought I would just be a theater actor, always had this, fantasy of traveling the world and working, the great theaters, working at the Moscow Art Theater. I mean, if you're going to dream big.
Why not?
But television for me, and that didn't come along until much, much later in my life, career. I mean, would I have accepted it if it had come along earlier? Right. Of course, but it just didn't. Even in New York, there was nothing. I mean, there were no. I mean, if you were not in an August Wilson play, you weren't working.
Right.
So
you were doing some little black box somewhere and 25, 50 seats or something, and yeah.
I think I worked about every grind joint in New York City.
You hit the ceiling, the dust comes down,
Yeah. No, it was. The worst was, I worked a place downtown and, in the middle of the scene, and it was a 50-seat house, and the cat walked across the stage. I mean, it was, I've been there,
Something's got to kill the rats, so
Yeah, they had the cat in the basement, and somebody left the door open, and, we had to stop the play, get the cat, get him back, it was that kind of thing. And the play was pretty damn good. I mean, we even got reviewed in the New York Times, 50-seat house. We got reviewed in the New York Times. Wow. But just not the night that the cat walked across the stage. Right. And then there was another one where I was doing a play, and we kept talking about the mother off stage, but you never saw the mother.
Okay.
Because she was always sick and everything. And the girl would go to the door and talk to the mother, but you never ever saw her. So one day, there was a big rain, and there was a leak on stage that just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And the woman who owned the theater came out to say, "Hey, look, we've got to stop." But she came out of the door that the mother, we've been talking to the mother.
Oh, that's awesome.
And everybody thinks it's the mother, And she says, "Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, excuse me. And, people don't know what the hell is going on. We didn't know what the hell was going on.
That's great.
But it was that type of thing. That was the early part of the career. So, as Othello says, I have done the state some service and they know it.
That's
no
right.
more of that.
That's right.
Those greater words were never spoken when it came.
You put your time in. You definitely did.
Yeah.
So when you left ACT, what was the trajectory then? Are you going to go L.A.? Are you going to go New York? What was your plan?
I went to L.A.
Okay. Why? Why did you choose that road?
Because I was terrified of coming to. I thought, because I always, in New York, always had like a lot of, respect, and I thought, they've got, the greatest actors in the world in New York City, and, who am I to, come bopping in and want to be, a part of that. Mm-hmm. So let me go to L.A., not dissing L.A., but it might be a smoother transition since I'm already on the West Coast.
Right. I don't know what it's like now, but there was a time, especially back then, when I used to hear all the time that it was like they're going to take the New York actors. They want the New York actors because the New York actors were trained and had, so we had a different.
That's what happened. Oh. That's exactly what happened. I would go to like a few auditions out in L.A. and they would say, "Oh, we're going to get a New York actor for this," and I would read it and go, "Oh my God, this is great." No, we're going to get a New York actor. We're going to get a New York. And after enough of that, I thought, well, look, let me go to New York City.
Right.
And when I come back, I'll be that New York actor that you found. Right. And that's exactly what I did because, I was out in L.A. I was out there for about 6 months. Wasn't working. That was miserable. And I thought it can't be that bad. Right, so I packed up my stuff and took a bus from.
Wow.
I took a bus from. Well, I took a bus from San Francisco to Oklahoma, visited my sister, and then took a bus from Oklahoma to South Bend, Indiana, visited my dad, and then took a train from there to New York City with one bag.
Had you ever been to New York City before?
No.
Wow.
No. I got here. I knew a friend. He said, "Yeah, you can come. You can stay here." The first night I slept in a closet. And I slept in a closet that was so small that I had to sit. I had to do it diagonally to be able to fit.
Oh my God.
I'm telling.
And that same closet in New York City right now goes for about $1.5 million.
Probably does. 2nd Avenue and 8th Street, where is where it started out, and then I realized, okay, so I got to get out of here.
And did you have a road? Did you have representation? Did you have a roadmap? Did you know what you wanted to do? What was the plan?
I didn't do anything.
Wow.
Nothing. Didn't really know anybody or anything like that.
So it was just sort of picking up backstage and looking for work, or wow.
And I remember I would go and get a roll of dimes and go to a payphone. And I had my roll of dimes.
Wow.
Roll of dimes, making calls. And, and then when somebody needed the payphone, I'd either wait until they were finished or just find another payphone and my roll of dimes and making calls. And it was, but the thing is, oddly enough, it didn't bother me that much because it was like, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I'm an actor.
Exactly.
This is what we do.
That's right.
We suffer brilliantly, and we go for coffee and sit in coffee shops and watch people, and you didn't have cell phones back then, and that's what I did, and just very, very slowly made my way.
What were some of the early things that you got that kind of stepped it up? Was it theater stuff mostly, I think, in New York? Obviously in New York. You weren't doing soaps and things like that, right?
No.
Yeah.
I wasn't doing anything like that. You know, I had a couple of friends who were on soaps.
That was a big thing there for a while when they were all in town. But
Very envious. I mean, especially if you got a soap. I would sometimes get a day on a soap. You know, usually as a cop. Played a lot of cops.
Yes, you still do. You still do play a lot of cops and politics.
I know. Only you know, they pay me a lot more now than they used to. You know,
a lot more dimes for the phone.
What's that?
A lot more dimes for the phone.
Yeah. You know, but I did that. You know, it was just hustling.
Did I read somewhere? I could be totally out my ass here. Did you audition for the? Are you an Actors Studio member? Did you audition for it? Or? You are.
I auditioned for the Actors Studio maybe 4 times.
Wow.
And I remember hearing that, like, you know, De Niro and Pacino and all those guys had auditioned like 8 times. So I remember thinking, okay, well, I'm going to have to at least do 8. And then after 8, you know, I'll start to think. But around about the 4th time, I auditioned.
All right. So for somebody, especially for other actors out there who don't know what that is, what was that process? What was that experience like? I mean, walk me through. Is it you sign up, you walk in, you do your thing? Like, what did you come in with? Was it a scene? Was it like, how did you do it?
Yeah, well, first I started just going to the Actors Studio, sneaking my way in because you could only be like a member to be able to sit in session. But you know, I would get in and watch and everything like that. And then when they had the auditions I think maybe once a year, I would find a partner, a scene partner, and go in and do the scene. And it was usually just you. It was weird because there was nobody in the audience. They were all behind a black curtain or something, or upstairs or whatever. You were just kind of doing the scene, you know, and then you would hear a voice that said, "Thank you," and you would leave and wait and try to find out. And the year I got in, it was sort of that year where I said, "Fuck it, I'm gonna just do some really, really weird shit," you know. That kind of, pardon my French, you know.
No, it's totally uncensored, man.
But I said I'm gonna do some very weird shit, you know, and you know, I was in that stage, you know, where I was mad. I got a friend of mine was in town, and I said, I've got this audition for the Actors Studio. Let's just go in there and just try to freak the fuck out of them and stuff, sitting behind their curtain. And it was a scene from a play called The Meeting of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. And we went in, I can't remember who I think I was Martin Luther King and my friend was Malcolm X, and he had me all tied up to a chair with a rope around me and everything like that. And I'm trying to move with this rope and everything. And it was just, I mean, you would never do the play like that. You know, it's just totally weird, you know.
Right.
And it was like, you know, yeah, that's what we're doing. Fuck you. And they called the next day and said, "Oh, you're in. You're in." You know,
that's awesome.
And bring your friend who wasn't even auditioning. He's in. And my friend was like, "No, I live in L.A., man. I'm not. You know, I don't want to be. I'm not gonna deal with that. But that's your thing, and you go ahead.
Wow.
That's
incredible. So over the years, have you used that resource? Like, do you go work stuff out there? Do you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sometimes I haven't worked in session in a very, very long time, but I used to go and you know, listen, work on things, and what I realized over the years, it wasn't about being weird. It was more about taking chances. It was more about expression. It was more about doing, you know, things that you feel. It wasn't like you had to come in and do the perfect scene.
Right.
and it's, you know, showing what you can bring to it, showing that you had a bit of an imagination, you
Right.
know. So
and an honesty, I guess, is what they're like. That's he's not hiding anything here. He's giving it to us.
right, and that was a bit of a lesson to me, was that, you know, because from then on out, uh, I would start to do things, not so much, you know, crazy weird stuff, but if I felt something, I wouldn't put a lid on it.
Right.
I would just kind of let it go out and do my thing.
Well, off on a tangent here, because I saw you. I guess I saw an interview of yours a while ago. I don't know with who, but you mentioned something about improvisation and how it plays into using it almost as a rehearsal tool right before you get into the text. So, you know, starting right on action on a set or in a rehearsal in the theater where you're kind of doing your little as if thing of your own, you know, and then you kind of get the feel of that honesty, and then you dive into the text with that energy. So you still do that kind of stuff? Is that what you're talking about, this sort of improvisational, what's bubbling up on this character? I just talk whatever comes out, and then I'll get into the text.
Yeah, I mean, it's all got to be connected to what you're doing. You know, you know, so there's got to be a little concrete in that way. But if it's connected to what it is you're doing, I found if they say action, if you just for a bit improvise your way into it, you get the other actor's attention.
Right.
They listen a whole hell of a lot more closely because they've got to know when they're going to be ready to rock and roll.
Right.
So if anything, you're just going to get their attention. And it kind of polarizes everything and brings something out in them.
Right.
And it's almost like throughout the rest of the scene, they don't trust you because they don't know when you're going to go off again.
Right.
So they've got to listen even more intently to make sure that they're not going to be left behind or there's going to be egg on their face or something like that. I mean, to me, I say that's great. That's beautiful, because that's all we basically want.
That's it.
Is that person across from us to really like focus and listen. And it just, to me, it just kind of calms me down, you know. It's just kind of, you know, because we know they say action and you, it's almost like the body wants to freeze, and it's, you know, and it's like you either going to have to take a moment or you're just going to have to improvise your way a little bit into it, and then go. And then they can just cut it right where they need to.
And let me, before we continue on to the parts of your career I want to get to, so let's just take just getting a script. When you're getting a piece of work, whether it's a play, and again, these are different mediums, so there's different ways to kind of look at it, and especially film, it's, you know, your schedule is out of continuity all the time, so who knows what you're going to be working on when. But when you get a piece of work to work on, what's some of the first things you do with that script and character? Where do you start?
The first thing I do is, you know, you get it. I try to read it openly. I try to read it as if I wasn't going to be in it or be a part of it. I want it to affect me that way. Just, it's a story. Then I start living with that character a little bit. Because it will come to you in different times of the day, be it in the shower, be it before you go to bed at night, be it in a cafe or something. You just start living with it. And then I find that if I do that, I'll start picking up certain things. I'll see certain people do things, especially if it's related to what it is I have to do. So, I can maybe play that, or that's a very interesting exchange. And I start doing it that way. So I really just start living with it before I, you know, sit down with it and get serious with it and start breaking it down and everything.
Right.
But I just wanted to sort of settle in very, very slowly.
And then is it sort of the typical sort of just finding objectives in each scene and what they want and what your character wants? And are you one of those actors who kind of builds a story around it, like sort of a backstory for yourself, or do you go that in depth, or is it just kind of dealing with whatever the text is suggesting? Like, you know,
I'll pretty much take. I'm sorry.
no, like he grew up here and sort of this whole lead, and do you do any of that kind of background type stuff that some people do?
A little bit, because, you know, there's two things there. One, I try to pay attention to what's in the script, and that's going to guide my backstory.
Right.
I'm not big on just making stuff up.
Right.
That's, you know, but so I do that. I look for, you know, the different circumstances and things like that. But then again, if I need to build something, I will. Like I just worked on a piece where I needed to justify how this couple met. And so I said, well, then, okay, what's going to work for me is that if they met at a grief counseling place, and that to me is believable,
Okay.
and they came together that way and then went on. You could do something like that. But a little bit of a backstory is good, but I'm not real big on, you know, writing huge paragraphs about stuff like that.
But it helps, I would think, for you, probably inform sort of that, even that improvisational moment where you know, there's a whole richness of who you are before you even come on that you've got in your inside you. Yeah. All right, cool. So let's move on. So so you're doing theater in New York, and at what point are you trying to do television at the same time? Because I've spoken to a lot of different actors, and every one of them who's in New York, including myself, we all have the Law and Order. The Law and Order pedigree, but nobody, with the exception of maybe Clohessy, but nobody other than you. I think you're the king. I think you've been on all of them multiple times in multiple different ways. Did that come early? Was that the first television stuff, or was it something else?
No, that was pretty much the first television stuff.
Okay, yeah, because that's been around for 1,000 years. So
yeah. I started doing a lot of television, not a lot of television, but you know, it was sort of like, you know, you get your Law and Order under your belt. It seems like that was sort of like, you know, your starting point. Exactly. You know, you do a Law and Order, and thank God, you know, because you know, kept a lot of actors, you know, in New York working and stuff. But I did those, and then every time they came out with a new Law and Order, I was very happy, because it was like, you know, they get tired of me on one, you know, play somebody's dad, and then you know, next season I murder somebody, murder kids, and then next week I'm, you know, or next year I'm the lawyer or something like that. Right. But that kind of stuff didn't faze me. It's like, look, I got a job, I need the job, and I'm going to play it. And
I've talked to a lot of different actors about this particular kind of acting situation, which is that guest starring bit on television, and it's the same story every time, which is you're just kind of thrown in. It's like, you go over here, and you know, boom, your brother died. Go. You know, like it's not like you're a series regular. So, what's that experience like for you, where you're just thrown into these characters and you show up on set and here's your costume and knock yourself out?
Yeah, I mean, early on it was, you know, it's kind of like if you're not going to be a series regular, which would be great, you know, as far as I was concerned, I was like the next best thing.
Right.
Was to, you know, to at least guest star.
But was it difficult, especially for a theater actor, from a craft standpoint, where it's like there's sort of a immediacy to just get up and work, you know, go?
No, I mean, to me, it wasn't difficult.
Cool.
It would be a little challenging, because I was sort of used to a little bit more rehearsal, a little bit more connection. But so you had to make those quick adjustments, and sometimes you would miss the boat on certain things. The beauty of television and film is you can always sort of cut and go back and do something else. And if you really miss the boat, they'll just tell you, you need to start thinking about something else.
Right.
But I would always still try to make sure that I came in with something.
Yeah.
I think in those types of situations, one of the biggest traps for an actor is that it's just, memorizing the lines.
Right. Not bringing some choice to the table.
Yeah. And usually you would find that, just bring something.
Right.
And if the camera picks it up, it can be very interesting and very intriguing.
Yeah, I guess making that strong choice, because there's not, in television and film, there's not a lot of people going to be telling you what to do. It's different than the theater. There's no real rehearsal chance here. It's like we hired you because you know what you're doing, so come in and do it. So so at this point in New York, is it somewhere in here that Spike Lee finds you? Is this where we start that relationship in New York when you're doing theater?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was. I told you about the cat walking across
exactly.
the cat theater. That I did that play, and they did a. I think Ben Brantley came and reviewed it. I reviewed like about 3 times in the New York Times, and and then it moved uptown to I forget the theater, but we were, I think it was the city center or somewhere. Anyway, we were playing there, and they did an article on me in the New York Times.
Wow. About
this actor who's just been around.
Right.
And I think Spike read that article and came to see the play.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Called up. We were all nervous as shit, it was terrifying. But he came and saw the play, and then he came backstage and congratulated everybody on it. And then that next week, I think, I got an audition for the 25th Hour.
Oh, wow.
And he cast me in the 25th Hour.
All right, so let me take a little side road here for a second, because something caught my attention. So was your dad still alive at this point?
No.
So did he ever get to see he didn't get to see the New York Times stuff and all that stuff?
No.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, it's too bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have other? I mean, you said you had a brother, and did any of the other family get to see all of this stuff start happening for you at that point, or no?
Yeah, I've got like 10 brothers and sisters.
Oh, okay.
So they've seen the trajectory.
Wow, that's great. That's awesome.
But they don't really, to me, they don't really know what I do, how I do it.
Right.
Show up on television, they think that's great, but they don't.
They didn't see the roll of dimes at the payphone.
No. And so, thank God they.
Yeah, exactly. So, 25th Hour. That's after 9/11, right? When did he do that one?
Right after 9/11.
Okay, so how old are you at that point?
How old am I?
Yeah, how old were you when he called you for that? Do you remember? That's 2002, 2001, something like that.
About maybe 45 45, 46.
All right. So there you go. So this technically is the big film break, which will eventually lead you into The Wire, I would think, right, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it was. I mean, but I had gotten into Goodfellas.
That's right.
That was the first movie
Right.
one of the first movies that I did. It was either that or Gremlins 2 as a fireman. But I try to forget that.
We all try to forget Gremlins. We'll just put that in our
Yeah. No, nothing against Gremlins. Just forget myself in Gremlins. You know, I think I said what. You know.
Yeah. Oh, Goodfellas, you were the doctor that takes Ray Liotta when he's all coked out, right? That's great. Yeah.
And so that was like my first film.
Sure.
But big film. But I would say the 25th Hour.
Yeah.
Was
so my point of saying that was for people who think, here's the break. It's like look at how long it takes and the work you put in as an actor and the time you put in before these kinds of things can happen. People don't see that, and they should see that. Yeah. That's
a lot of dimes.
Man. A lot of dimes, and a lot of, I think, with the immediacy of the way the world is now, I think a lot of kids are missing that point that you don't just raise your hand and you're an actor.
No, you don't. You really don't. And I tell people all the time, you have no idea the amount of hard work, that goes into it that I've done.
Yeah.
And it, sometimes it gets to me, people think you just sort of showed up on the scene, and it's like, it hasn't been, I was like close to 50 when, things started to break my way.
Right.
But I always looked at it, I didn't really have much of a choice. I mean, what else was I going to do, especially at that point?
Yeah.
I thought, well, this is going to be my life, and I'll just keep working around the city. But fortunately, I got that break, and then The Wire.
So let's hang on Spike for a bit. What was the experience like? Did you have an expectation? Knowing Spike as a from the outside, as we all do, and then what was it like when you got on that set? What was the environment like for you to work?
So the environment was great, and you're right. You have a certain expectation, but the one thing I realized with Spike, he really loves actors, and he really respects what you do, the craft. He assumes that you are going to know what you're doing.
Right.
So you don't want to disappoint. Because think about it. A director trusts, that you're gonna do it. You got to make sure you're gonna bring it. Yeah. That's what I always notice with Spike, and so I always try to show up prepared, as much as I possibly can. Yeah. Because I would always say, if you're going to give me that leeway,
right,
and that respect, I'm gonna, show it back by, having my shit together, right, and being ready to go. And it has worked in a variety of different things that I've done with them, where I just show up and I've got about maybe 4 or 5 different approaches, and I'm gonna take my time, take after take, to sort of work some of these things out. Yeah, and that has been good, and that's where the shit and all of that stuff
right.
Which I have to say, I got to throw a plug in for my bobblehead.
Absolutely, I was going to get to it, but I didn't want to lead off the bat with that. But that is fascinating to me.
We won't lead off the bat with that. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But anyway, but that has been good.
So let's talk about preparation. Is it different for you in different mediums, in different situations. Like, you're getting ready next week. Tuesday is day one of a Spike Lee film, or the week after that is day one of a rehearsal of a play on Broadway, or whatever it is. Is the approach in your mind different at how you're gonna? It is, okay.
The approach is going to be different, because if it's a play, you got to prepare for the long haul.
Right.
The rehearsals 8 hours a day, 10 hours.
Right.
Because you have when you get out on stage, your room for error is very, very small. Yeah, practically non-existent. So there's not going to be any cut, go back,
right.
Start again, that kind of a thing. Film, you prepare, but there's going to be an immediacy to it, and you're going to have to hit it. But in the back of your mind, if not, I've got 2 or 3 more cracks at it,
right.
to get it right.
Right.
I try to not, use up all of my chances when I'm doing it.
Right.
I like to sort of hit it when I do and keep going. But if I got to go back, I will.
And if you're on a film set, are you one of those actors who sort of manages the performance from wide to medium to close to the other guys over the shoulder to, like, where you're like, I'm going to save some of this for this, or do you just go all out every time?
I try to go all out every time.
That's awesome.
I'll tell you why. Because I see other actors when they don't do that. What they forget is that your performance affects the other actor, and if you half-ass it,
mm-hmm.
there's a difference.
Yeah.
So if you give everything that you can, as much as you possibly can, it's really going to affect that actor's
right.
performance.
Absolutely.
And you hope to get the same back.
Well, I'll tell you what, that is the right way to do it, and that's extremely generous, but it's sometimes rare. There are times where people even walk off for those off lines. I've been in situations like that, so that's a generous actor to go all out and give that other actor what they should be getting.
Yeah, they, or they'll put a stand-in and have somebody read the lines and stuff like that. But I have found if you do it for the other actor, unless he's like a real asshole, he'll do it. He'll feel bad because it's like, you're doing all this and then he's going to say, fuck you,
Right.
So he'll usually stick around if he got it from you.
Right.
If he didn't get it from you, then he's gone.
Right.
So
wow. Well,
I try to do that. And I can't tell you how many actors have thanked me for doing that.
I can totally see why.
Yeah,
it's incredibly generous to do, especially in the film and television world. So I promise we're going to get back around to Spike and the Five Bloods and some of the other interesting experience. I'll finish with that. I'm not going to keep you too much longer. But let's get into The Wire, because that's going to lead us into the famous catchphrase. But how did they find you? Like, where did that come from? Was that an agent got you an audition for, or did they come looking for you? Like, how did you get The Wire?
No, The Wire, I had auditioned for it. I'll never forget, I walked into the room and there were like about 30 guys sitting there.
Wow.
And, I said, oh, God, I'm never going to get this part. And I don't think I really auditioned. I did not audition for Clay Davis, I don't think. No, I take that back. I did. The first character I auditioned for was Lester Freeman. Okay. And when I didn't get Lester Freeman, they called me back and I auditioned for Clay Davis. But it was weird because I auditioned for Lester Freeman, but Lester Freeman had already been cast. I mean, by the time I auditioned, they were off and running.
Yeah,
they just gave me a scene. I found out later that they had no storyline or no intention having Clay Davis. I mean, I was only supposed to be in like a party and a couple of times, and then that was it. But
that says,
I guess, like, what
that says something about the actor, who, especially if they had you reading anything just to hear you, and it's like, well, we got to find something for this guy.
Yeah, and the storyline didn't come until the third season.
Right.
That's when they started writing for me.
And did you know at the time that it was kind of what it was? Because it was huge. You know, it was a kind of a landmark. It was up there with. Sure. Yeah. Did you have the sense of what you were in? How big?
Oh yeah. I mean, I knew it was, it was this great show and everything like that. You know, I can't. This will be the first time you'll ever hear me say this on national television or radio or whatever.
The internet.
Yeah, or the internet. My number one thing in the back of my mind was, this is a great show. Don't fuck it up. That I always thought about that. I remember saying to myself, I don't want to be the weak link.
Right.
I don't want to be where they say, Wire's great, but that Isiah Whitlock guy is, he's in a different world,
Right.
So, but again, that still did not stop me from doing what I do and playing my game, And
yeah.
I remember I was sitting there with Idris Elba, and I'm feeling very intimidated. This is Stringer Bell, and I've got to be running a scam on Stringer Bell, so I gotta move things along and do these things, So it was, once I got used to it, I was okay with it, and I was like, okay, I think I found my groove. I think I hit my groove, and I'm just going to ride this and keep playing it and keep playing it.
It's like taking those first few hits at inside linebacker. You get the first hit, you're in the game.
Yeah.
Well, first punch in the ring, first shot in the nose in the ring, you're in the game now. Yeah.
And that's the way it's interesting you say that, because that's the way I am. I'm always terrified until I get out on stage.
Yeah.
Once I get out on stage, I know the only way to get off stage is
That's right.
But I'm always terrified until I put that costume on,
right,
and get out there. I remember when we were on the road doing the piano lesson, I was always tired. There were days when I didn't want to perform. And, but once you get to the theater and you put that costume on,
right,
I don't know what happens. It's like,
I'm on a tiny level compared to, your career. Obviously I'm a nobody, but the times that I've, produced films and it's like the setup, it's like, I got to pack the shit and get the equipment and it's dread. It's just dread. And then once you're rolling, you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Can we just get to this part where I'm just rolling?
Yeah. Once they say places and you cut down those steps and into the backstage and you see and you're off and rolling and I gotta say it feels good. It feels good, and thank God you feel that when you get that sort of transformation, because it's it could be deadly if you didn't, but that's the way I get.
That's the juice, that communication between audience and artist. All right, so The Wire, is that where we get, how many E's are in shit? What, about 9? There's got to be like 9, I think, E's in that. Is that where that came from?
Yeah, 9 E's.
9 E's.
I make that up.
That's awesome. That's so great.
I saw so many, fucked up spellings online. I thought, okay, I gotta, if we're gonna do this and we're gonna live with this,
right,
I gotta start setting some groundwork.
You gotta get the official spelling.
Shit, boy. Shit, partner. For all that profile, shit. Reese Doby? For governor of my state? Shit.
Yeah.
So is that where it came from? Was it that character, or was it before that?
No. It was in the 25th Hour.
25th Hour. Okay.
All of that came with Spike, working with Spike, And I think I did it at the audition, and for the 25th hour. And then when we got into production, I remember pulling the drugs out of the couch, and I said something else. I had another thing lined up, because like I said, I always got stuff lined up, ready to go. And Spike said, he said, I think you should use that thing you do right here. I said, no, I was going to use that later. I got another little thing I'm going to do. He said, let me hear it. I did it. He said, nah, I think you need to do that here, and then you can also do it later. So I said, shit. When I pulled the bricks of cocaine out of the couch.
Shit. Mr. Brogan, I do believe you're fucked.
And then I say it later when I'm with Ed Norton,
right.
Shit.
Right.
That's where that came from. When I got onto The Wire, they started writing it in.
No shit.
Yeah, they started writing it in. And it's interesting because that is not something I came up with. I mean, I think most African Americans would tell you, that's just a thing you heard all the time. And it sort of took me by surprise that anybody would pay attention to it. It was because it was just, for me, it was just a throwaway at the audition. It was, I didn't think,
Now let me ask you, when they wrote that into The Wire, did you say to somebody, "What are you guys referencing 25th Hour?" Like, were they?
No.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was this is just the way they talk. Because like I said, it was a very acceptable thing. I mean, growing up with it, you heard it all the time. My uncle used to do it 20 times a day, it seemed like, So it was just a normal kind of thing,
But Isiah,
I was never, shit, that food was good.
Right. But Isiah, you got it. As common as it's now yours, man. I mean, it somehow stuck to your performances. How did that happen?
Well, a friend of mine told me, he said, I said, I don't get it. I said, people are like, stopping me on the street and everything like that. And he said, no, it's not the word. It's the way you do it.
Right.
With that sort of Indiana, Tennessee sound that you've got going. That sort of twang in your voice. It's
got a little nasal quality to it.
Yeah, and he said that's the difference. It's not, just saying shit. It's the way you do it.
Right.
And I had to stop and think about that. And I thought, oh my God, because I did it. I said, shit. And it does like start up, ends up way up here in the nose and then sort of trails off or that kind of a thing. And so I said, oh, I get it. And then I started saying, okay, I guess I'm going to have to.
All right. So now we can go off on this road a little bit before we finish with your career. But off on this road, now once that's part of your life and people are calling you out on the street for this, how did this whole, the bobblehead thing and the website, how did that start? Because that's hysterical. I've seen the bobblehead, the bits you do with that. It's hysterical.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah. I mean,
Don't push the button, man. Don't be scared.
I'm not scared at all, baby. Yeah. Oh, this is going to move so fast.
I was at a friend's house in Baltimore, and he had a bobblehead of Ray Lewis.
Okay.
That was when I first got the idea. It was like a real solid made bobblehead. And I said, oh man, I should get a bobblehead that says shit. And I said, I got to get one that talks. I was only going to make like about 100 bobbleheads.
Right.
And business partners said, well, let's do it. Let's see if we can raise some money on Kickstarter. And we went on Kickstarter. And like I said, I was only trying to raise money to make about 100 of them. And we raised over $100,000 in a matter of days.
Bizarre. It's
to make these to make these. I mean, it just kept going up and up and up and up and up. And I thought, oh my God, what is happening? You know, and so I got the check, and I thought, now I got to make these. But then you did know you were dealing with Clay Davis.
She
could just take the $100,000 and run, and you know.
That's awesome.
Someone told me people probably would have appreciated the fact.
I'm sure they would have. Yeah, there would have been some justice to that.
They had been hoodwinked by Clay Davis, you know. But no, but I found a company that made them and sent them.
And where can people find them? Let's plug that website.
You can go to shit.com.
Oh my God!
Just make sure that you use 9 E's.
9 E's. SH 9 E's and then an IT. Is that how it goes? Yeah.
9 E's and an IT.
Nice.
And you know, if you get 80s, I think shit.com is going to come up. But you got to get close to that.
Oh, that is just the most perfect thing especially for the guy who was counting the dimes. To me, that is justice for the act. It's like I came up with a catchphrase, and for some reason, people just dig it, and that's it. And now you capitalize on it. I think that's awesome. All right, so let's.
Yeah, the thing is, I was never trying to.
No.
You know, it was just one of those things. It was just one of those things that happened. But I mean, you know, typical me, you know, it's like something's bound to come out, you know, and that's what came out.
That's awesome. All right, so let's spin back around. We'll finish up with some of especially last season, the Five Bloods, the whole awards thing, that experience, and then the last thing I saw you in. I know you've been in a zillion things. That's why I didn't want to do a career thing, because I can't even keep up. You got so much stuff. But the one thing I saw you in that I really loved was the Bryan Cranston one, Your Honor. I thought that was a great character and a great little bit. You know, a real cool series. So let's go with the Five Bloods. What was that Spike experience like? I mean, that's taken you to Vietnam and Thailand, and that's crazy. What did you know what you were in for with that, and how did that whole thing play out?
I didn't know I really didn't know what I was in for. I mean, I knew that, you know, we were going to, you know, it sounded really cool going to Thailand and Vietnam, shoot this movie, you know. After about a couple of weeks of being out in the jungle, it was like, wow, you know, I'm old is what it told me. Yeah. That being said, it was an amazing experience. I mean, almost life-changing in a way, because there were so many things happening. You know, having to deal with, you know, you're in the jungle, you're trying to act, you're dealing with these elements and things like that. Are you acting? Yes. But it was like the conditions were guiding and making you feel that feeling of what, say, a soldier probably felt.
Wow.
While he was there. I mean, I can't say, you know, it was the same. It was probably 10 times worse. Yeah. But it was, you know, just a glimpse of it. Really, you know, the sweating, the mosquitoes, the flies, you know, and there was no way of getting around it. You had to really.
Now, let me ask you this question: as an actor in that space, are you going in sort of with your typical, you got a scene to do that day, you have an intention for your character, blah, 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 and then the truth of the environment sort of creeps in? Did you just give in to like whatever's going to come out here comes out? Or did you kind of stick with what you had sort of wanted to achieve? Like, how did that mix happen? Because that's an intense environment.
But you could go in with all of that, you know, and you could still do all of that.
Right.
But the environment and everything happening around you came in and put like this other layer on top of it, and sort of guided some of those things, made some of those things a whole hell of a lot more intense. You know, it was like, I remember there was one scene where, you know, we're standing around and we're arguing in the film, and I, you know, I would get so frustrated. But when we got to that point, I was like even more frustrated.
Sure.
Because yeah, I'm frustrated, but God damn it, you know, I'm out here and it's hot, and you know, you want to go off and you do that, and you want to do this, and you know, it was like, it was almost, you know, you want to say, look, I've had it, you know, I can't, you know, it just put a whole layer on, you know.
Wow.
And yet, you know, and the thing is, you're telling this amazing story about, you know, African Americans and, you know, in the Vietnam War, and the disparity, and so you've got all of that working. It was, you sort of left it all out there, in the jungle.
Wow.
And so when you look back on it, you say, well, yeah, I did it, we did it. You know, we made a great movie, and worked hard, you know, but there was no way of getting around it.
Right.
You know, there was no slinking off to the trailer or anything like that.
Yeah, right.
You know,
is there something as an actor you can take from an experience like that to the next piece that maybe doesn't have that? Like the next time you go and that environment isn't as oppressive and isn't as influential in the performance, but you remember what that was like. Can you sort of pull for, like, is it a lesson learned? Like, do you think?
What it is you begin to realize that every film has that. You just got to connect with it.
Right.
You know, it may not be as intense as that.
Right.
But you can't take it for granted. You know, you've got to recognize it and still let it affect you, and because it becomes another character, and you've got to give into it and let it happen. You know, there
you didn't have a choice.
Itself upon you. The other is there. You've just got to open yourself up to it.
Yeah, I was always taught the truth is all around you, man, and that's you know, whether it's the audience that's sitting there, the energy that's coming to you, or whether it's, you know, the temperature on a set, or the whatever it is it's you can't ignore the truth. The truth is going to find you one way or the other. So the more you embrace that into what it is you're doing, the more honest the performance is going to come out anyway. So if you're in Vietnam, you have no choice. It's going to find you.
It's going to find you.
And you had a great ensemble. I mean, those guys are all amazing. You've had really the chance to work with just amazing people too throughout your career. I think that's got to be really a fantastic thing to do. And what was the whole? Was that your first experience? Because you did Black Klansman as well too, right? Yeah. So what was the experience of when award season for something like this comes along as an actor? Are you thinking along those lines that, you know, hey, they're gonna, because that was a big season for that picture, you know, and the whole Netflix thing. Did you think about that?
You know, you sort of hope, you know, that it's gonna, you know, pick up something, you know. You're always a little disappointed when, you know, it doesn't.
Right.
I did sort of find you can't let yourself get too wrapped up in it, you know. If they like you, they like you. If they don't.
And those all had such Academy buzz around them. That's why I brought it up. I wonder if the environment of you guys, if like you guys were aware of that outside of it, like, oh, this is getting some eyes on it right now, you know. Yeah. Okay.
And there was, you know, people would talk, you know, but my feeling is a little different today than it probably would have been, say, maybe 20 years ago, you know.
How so?
I'm just kind of like, I don't know if it's just because I'm just sort of been there, done that, tired of it, you know.
Right.
And it's kind of a good feeling where you're not guided by, you know, what people say or think or do. If you like it, great. If you don't, then you don't. You know, I always say nobody knows the amount of work and time you put in to just do what little bit you did. And sometimes you'll take a chance, take a lot of chances, and you'll be successful. And then there's sometimes, you know, you won't be. It doesn't mean anything. It just means, you know, that didn't work. So, or people didn't like that, you know, so you just go off and do something else. If it was going to be like the only film I ever would do,
right,
I'd be a little bit more upset. But the fact that I'm going to get another shot, well, then, you know, it's like, it's just one game, you know.
Yeah.
And you just go on and
so last couple of things, do you still feel the same way about the craft, about acting? Do you still get the same juice that you got, you know, walking into the American Conservatory or wherever else in the beginning? Like, do you still get that same want to get up in the morning and do it?
Yeah. The fire in the belly has not died.
What would you like to do? Like Fantasyland, you know, if they, what kind of, whether it's a specific part or the kind of it, like, what is there something you would like to play, or is it still just whatever's next that's interesting? But is there something you'd like to do that, you know, somebody could write for you and do for you, or classic or not classic, whatever?
Not really. You know, I always had the dream, like I was saying earlier, you know, I always had the dream of playing Hamlet, you know. I won't, you know, even though they do say in Hamlet, he's fat and short of breath. But I think that was put in.
If it be now, 'tis not to come. If it be not now, it will come. You know, it's okay. You'll get there.
But no, I mean, I'm in a bit of a happy place. You know, I like it when I get the different characters and things like that, and I can work on different characters and stuff. You know, I love that. You know,
is there anything coming up as we wrap up? Anything you're working on now? Now that are we completely out of this whole lockdown thing for where you're at? Are you starting to get? Yeah,
well, we're gonna do. They announced the second season for Your Honor.
Wow! I thought that was a limited series, so they're doing 2 seasons on that.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. I really enjoyed that series. That was good.
That was a lot of fun. About as much fun as it could be.
Yeah, considering the material. Yeah.
But
let me just stop you. That you guys shot that in New Orleans, right?
New Orleans, yeah.
What a great place to go work for a couple of months.
Yeah. Yeah, but I realized, you know, in New Orleans, you know, with all the food and music, you got to pick your battles, you know. You know, you don't want to eat too many po' boys.
I'd be lost down there, man. I'd be totally lost in that.
Yeah, you know, it's like after about a week, you say, okay, I think I better slow down here, you know, lay off the beignets, you know.
Exactly.
But that, and I just got back from Ireland. I was shooting a movie called Cocaine Bear. Okay. That should be coming out next year.
Awesome.
I did. There's another project, but I'm not allowed to talk about it.
Is there any thought ever about doing theater?
Yeah. I just haven't found the time.
Right.
I haven't had 10 weeks.
Right.
But I think the last play I did was about 10 years ago.
Wow.
I did Farragut North with the Atlantic Theater Company.
Oh, Atlantic Theater Company, yeah.
Yeah, great theater company.
Yep.
And I just haven't had that. really over the past 10 years, just haven't had
We'll have
the
to
time.
get you and Roz together and get you on stage and do something cool.
That would be great.
She
That
could
would
be she could, well, it'd be a different age guy. She'd have to be Ophelia. And you could do your Hamlet finally. Hey, listen, Isiah, I appreciate all this. This much time you gave me. I'm glad we got to do it. It was worth the wait. You are a true working actor, talent, with such a breadth of a career. It's an honor for me to talk to somebody like you, and I just really appreciate you giving me the time.
Thank you, bet. Who's on your shirt? Is that
This is Marvelous Marvin Hagler, my friend.
Oh my God.
That's one of my heroes. I mean, I'm a huge boxing fan. Been boxing training my whole life and stuff. So and I know you did some boxing too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a huge. Grew up in the '80s with Marvin Hagler as my hero. So
Oh wow, cool.
Yeah,
Cool.
Yeah, we lost him.
Well, he was a good one. He was one of the best.
Top 3 to 5 middleweights of all time, in my opinion. He's right up there.
Yeah.
He's right up there.
He just passed away recently.
Yeah, he died 2020, I think, or 2021. Yeah, he died. Just.
I know. Right after that fight with who was it?
Leonard.
Sugar Ray.
Yeah, he retired.
Yeah, and he went to
Italy. Became a movie star in Italy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. I mean, what was great about him was that showed you who he was, because he worked so hard. He was the Isiah Whitlock of boxing. I mean, he worked so hard, and the guys like Leonard, amazing talent as Sugar Ray Leonard was the golden boy. He was the Olympic champion, and he got all the endorsements. And Marvin always got that second tier. He never quite got the respect. And he chased Leonard his whole career, and Leonard dodged and dipped, and then finally when he did lose, which I still to this day don't think he lost that fight.
I don't think he lost.
I
that
think
fight.
Marvin won that fight.
I do too. Nothing against
Yeah.
nothing against Sugar Ray. He's a
Yeah.
great champion, but that fight
Yeah.
could have gone either way.
Yeah, and I think people didn't pay attention to a lot of body shots and things in there. But anyway, he felt like, okay, that's it. You're not going to respect me. I'm done. You stole it from me one last time, and off he went, and rode off into the sunset and had a great life, and died too young, obviously, but he was fine. He never went for the rematch, never went, just rode off like another one of my heroes, Marciano, who just rode off. They just ride off into the sunset. It's like, I'm done.
Yeah.
So.
I still think the fight with the hitman Tommy Hearns was the greatest fight I ever saw.
Oh, yeah.
3 rounds and no fooling.
Unbelievable. 2 guys at the peak of their ability saying, fuck it, we're just going to go for it.
Yeah. And I mean, it was only 3 rounds, but they gave you about 3 fights worth in that one fight.
Yep.
How they could stand there toe to toe and trade shots.
And Tommy hit harder than anybody, and he stunned Marvin early, but man, he walked through it after that, and that was like incredible to me.
Marvin had the cut over his eye, and oh my God, it was. I saw that at the Beacon Theater when you had to.
I saw it at the Nassau Coliseum. So you had to go for pay-per-view. You had to go to an actual venue to go see it.
Yeah.
That was a great night.
Yeah.
And I actually met Marvin up at the Boxing Hall of Fame not too long ago, maybe 10 years ago. He was a cool guy, really sweet guy.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, man. I really appreciate this, and we'll cut the program here. That's the end of the program, but I'll just like to say to you personally, thanks so much, and I appreciate Roz for introducing us. All right, man. Thanks so much.